Good evening, or afternoon, or morning, depending on where you are. I know many people are all over the place. If you've never been here, I'll say quickly, this is the Sunday Pub. This is a nerdish book nerd hangout that I do every Sunday at the same time. I invite different people every week to join me and talk about books and anything else we feel like talking about. Usually it's a mixed bag of subjects. And we do reading sprints. So we all read together for about half an hour at a time and otherwise just chat. This week, we'll see who all joins, but so far we have, wait a sec, that didn't work. We have Joe.
Hey guys.
Joe's been here before, but it's been a while. How you doing, Joe?
I am great. How are you?
Pretty good. I'll do it so that you don't have to. Joe, for anyone who doesn't know Joe, is better known as JCM Berne, and he is my favorite man punches spaceship author. He has written numerous books, which are all sort of a mix of sci-fi and superheroes. Let me flip you so that you're not your book isn't backwards. There we go. Yeah, Wistful Ascending is the beginning of the series. I have read Wistful Ascending, and it is fun as hell and has some really epic action and stuff in it. And it is basically superheroes in space.
Yep.
And man does literally punch spaceship.
Yep.
Among other things that he punches.
Many things get punched.
There's lots of punching.
There's much punching happening.
Yes, quite a bit of punching happening. We also have a Derry.
Derry.
Hello.
Speaking of good morning, how you doing?
Good morning. Hi, Matt. Hey, Joe. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm a happy person this morning. It's official.
You're also flipped. I always do this at the beginning so that if anyone holds up a book or has a Liverpool scarf in the background, it's actually readable.
Nice. Nice.
Let me say hi to everybody.
Being a football fan on the other side of the world.
K2U3 is here. Thornell is here.
Nice.
Justin's here. Ida's here. I can't tell all of you in the chat how happy it makes me to see basically the usual suspects almost every week. There are, not everybody makes it every week, but usually a lot of the chat is people who are here every week, and I love seeing that. Speaking of people who are always here, Jerome's here.
Jerome. It feels like the pub where you walk in and you're like, it's everyone I know.
Exactly. That was the whole idea when I started the Sunday Pub. I just wanted a place to hang out with a bunch of friends regularly because I do have a pub right around the corner from me.
Yeah.
Which is pretty good. I mean, it's an Irish pub in Germany, so you know.
Could go wrong.
Yeah, well, and I've been to Irish pub. There's an Irish pub in Hamburg where I used to live, which is actually run by an Irish guy, and when he can, he hires Irish expats as well. So you go in, you hear Irish accent English. It actually feels like a proper Irish pub. But most Irish pubs in Germany are run by Germans, and they're Irish pubs, you know.
To be fair, if the Germans come close to anybody, it's going to be in a pub because they're pretty good at beer.
They are, but a proper, like, if I think German pub, it's a beer garden. Right. There is a beer garden.
Oh, it's very specific.
Near where I used to live in Berlin, and called Pratergarten. And it's this huge outdoor area under trees. And you can go over there and buy a sausage, and you can go over there and buy your beer. And then you sit at these long tables with benches. It's a beer garden, you know, and that to me is like the proper German feeling of pub. It's as close as it gets. They don't really have a pub. Well, that's not really true. There are some pubs. Like there's one right around the corner from me here that I will never go to because it's basically one of those. Well, it's one of those places where it's been there for probably since before the war, and alcoholics live there.
Right.
You know, it's that kind of place.
I used to work like the early morning shift for UPS, which is a package delivery company. So we were loading trucks. So we were basically done at 8 a.m., right? Because that's when the trucks go out. So that's the last minute for the stuff to come in. So you get them on the trucks. So and many people worked overnight. So it was the end of the day. So we're all going out to a bar at 8 a.m. at the end of our day to have a beer before going to have dinner and going to bed for the day, which wasn't really as... but then you run into the people who are just already at the bar at 8 a.m. and we're not, in fact, on a night shift. And it was like very diverse crowds of people meeting at the bar for your 8 a.m. beers. It was quite amusing.
I mean, this is Berlin. So like the area I live in, Berlin, is actually, it used to be, it's not at all anymore, but it used to be one of the richest areas in Berlin, like before the war. And there are a lot of old families who've been here for a long time, and it's not a very cool or hip area. So the kids don't move here. And all of the hipsters live elsewhere in Berlin. But there's an area where I used to live, which is very hip, but it's got one of those really old bars, which is dirty, and the guy behind the bar looks like he's been through a few wars. And
well, to be fair, it's Germany. He might have done.
He probably has. And actually, I think he's just done a lot of drugs and drunk way too much, like forever. And he's really old.
So meeting all of the tropes.
From the outside, it looks like one of those bars that I would never go in. But because of where it is, it's always really interesting. Like I started going there very consciously when I lived over there, because it's all of the people you would expect in that sort of stereotype of a bar, plus kids, plus hipsters. I mean, not kids like children, but like, young, 20-year-olds. And it's like immigrants from all over the place. Like people, it was a very diverse area. So it's got a really diverse crew in there. And you've got these like old alcoholics who look like their asses are nailed to the stool they're sitting on, next to like a 20-year-old who's studying gender studies and he speaks Japanese, but he's actually from Canada or something, these kind of mixes of people. And that made it really cool. Dan can't come. I sent him a link. But he's got a family that keeps him busy, and he's doing family shit today.
Hey,
which is just another chapter of the ongoing loveliness of Dan's life nowadays.
Oh, it is. I haven't spoken in depth to him.
History is not necessarily the cheerfulest.
No. Dan and I mostly, like we have exchanged a lot of texts about our depression and what medication we're taking and stuff like that. I'm not taking any, and I'm not sure he's taking any anymore at the moment either. I just ran out and didn't refill my prescription.
That's a bit dangerous. You know that.
Yeah, but I'm doing all right with it. So I'm getting on with it. KTU3 Sunday Pub Summer Edition live from the Beer Garden. Yeah, I mean, I would have to do streaming over my hotspot over from my phone. It's a beer garden, so there isn't Wi-Fi in the beer garden. So I'm not sure that would work. I mean, it's a cool idea. Yeah. But maybe I could record a video from the beer garden at some point and play it on a Sunday pub. That would probably work better.
So long as you do it
Claudia.
every evening, like a couple of minutes every hour, and we can see you slowly disintegrate into drunk Matt. That would be.
I mean, to be honest, it would probably be I would bother to record it already when I'm quite drunk. So it'd probably be like, and just,
I'm here for that.
No, I like the drinking vlog idea. Like every like 3 minutes of video, then a shot.
I've had one beer and I feel totally lucid, and then 2 beers and 3 beers, and that's not a bad idea.
A drinking
Brian's
vlog.
Here. Good to see you, Brian.
Awesome. Good to see you, Brian.
Hope life is going well. We were texting a bit earlier. Are you driving, Brian, or are you just hanging out in the chat? He had some dealing with vehicles that he might need to do. He said earlier. So, yeah, you'll be happy, Derry.
Okay. Oh, yes, I am.
See, I told you. I knew you would be.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I got back to the last thing I read, as everybody knows, because it was in the pub for like 4 weeks, was Return of the Crimson Guard. And I finished it. It was good. It was, Esselmont is not Erickson.
No.
That book was doomed to fail because your expectations for the Crimson Guard had been built up so much. I don't know how that book could have been epic enough to satisfy.
It actually the epic shit was. I was satisfied as far as epic shit because there was some pretty epic shit in that book. Yeah, the place, the parts that I wasn't really overly happy with. First of all, I mean, it feels like an author's first book, which it kind of was. So that's fine. I can forgive a lot of that, but because of that, it felt very all over the place. It was really, really hard for me to follow who was where, what they were doing. And the other thing I realized when I got through the entire book, I put it down and I was like, I don't think I care about any of these characters at all.
Oh.
Yeah. Not that I dislike them necessarily. It's just like, I'm just not that interested in what they were doing or what they do next. There were a couple. I had a couple of sort of mystery questions open, like, who exactly is Greymane? What's his deal, But it was more kind of like, I'm curious about some things, but I don't really care about anyone that much.
So how far into Jingo are we?
Not very far. About 30-something pages. Yeah.
Oh, so have you even met the Disorganizer Mark II, I think, in this one?
I have not.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all right. Matt messaged me earlier and said, "Are you coming to the pub? I'm reading Jingo." And I'm like, "Yay! Bingly, bingly, beep." And you don't get that reference yet.
I saw that. I saw you write that text, and I was like, I'm sure that's something later in the book that I will understand eventually.
It will be.
But I do not understand it right now.
Thing.
Yeah. No,
what about you, Joe? What are you reading?
Or writing, for that matter.
Well, true.
Oh, you're also Carling.
Yes.
So I'm still in that stage where I'm reading what people are asking me to read. So this is because on Joe Carroll's channel, we're talking about this book tonight. And I read the first book. Joe Carroll?
Which DCC way you're up to?
Yeah. And so, this is DCC 2.
Yes.
This is the second book. So I'm like 80% through. I need to finish it by 7 p.m., which is in 5 hours. That's not a problem. Yeah, there's very smooth reads. I really enjoyed book 1 more than I expected to, and I don't like the lit RPG elements really much at all. I'm not a gamer, so they don't appeal to me, but I still really liked the first book. I thought it had more depth than it needed. That's my review in a nutshell, right? It was a very fun
More
book
depth than it needed.
because the appeal is not in the depth. Like the
Yeah.
appeal is in the humor and the action, and yet it added the depth anyway, which put it over the top for me.
Yes. Yeah,
To-
the
to make-
gaming elements, because I'm not a gamer, so
Yeah.
a lot of that went over my head. And I was like, okay, I don't really get the importance of this. And it doesn't so much drift away, but it becomes far more of simply part of a bigger story.
Yeah.
And it's not what's carrying the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I adore Dungeon Crawl. I've read it 5 times since last August.
I actually think the tone reminds me of my books in a lot of ways.
Although it's pushing the overt jokiness a lot harder than you did.
Yes, I agree. But so what I'm writing is I am in the editing stage of turn 7. So it's with beta readers and my line editor. I'm going to make small changes and then finish it. So I should get my cover sometime next week.
That's also Hybrid Helix.
Hybrid Helix, yeah. So that's I have one book other than the Hybrid Helix, and right now I'm trying to really focus on the Hybrid Helix because I find that writing other stuff doesn't really bring me more readers, and it takes time and energy, and it doesn't sell. So it's like, and I have a main series that I really want to finish before I die, and it's supposed to be long, so I need to get on that.
How long is it supposed to be?
I'm shooting for the neighborhood of 20 books.
Oh my goodness.
Ish. I mean, I have a story, and you can tell at the end of book 5 that it's starting to move. But that was always my goal. My goal was always to do a Dresden-y thing, right? Or a Jereg thing. Jeregi? Stephen Brust. Where you've got this really long series of standalones that tell a story, and it's like, an epic story in an epic fantasy and heroic fantasy segments, right?
Nice.
So that was always,
don't do two-dimensional characters like Jereg.
Well, you have to read it. I can't be the judge of that. Someone else has to be the judge of that. I'm not trying to do two-dimensional characters.
I've read a fair bit of Jereg, and I've read your first book, and you're doing a good job of not having Jereg-y characters. Jereg has some interesting stuff in the stories.
Yeah.
But when I went back to reread it, because I had read, I don't know, 6 of the books or something like that years ago, and when I went back to reread it, I was like, every single character is a cardboard cutout, and the main character is a Mary Sue.
Yeah, I read them a long time ago, and I'm not current. I've only read the first 10, but I don't think I read one in 15 or 20 years. Yeah. So, and I was a less critical reader then than I am now. Writing made me a much more critical reader, more than anything else. Yeah. So I find that
these people does that for me.
I'm sorry, what?
Hanging out with all of these people does that for me.
I think gray hair did it for me. Like I think I read the first 6 Jereg books when I was in my 20s.
Yeah.
And I wasn't thinking very hard about what I was reading at the time. I was just like flowing along and enjoying stuff, and I wasn't very critical. And yeah.
Someone picked up Tower of God because of me. I'm so glad. I love that series. It's a manhwa. It's a manhwa. It's very long. I don't know if the world building in that is phenomenal, and it's a huge influence on what I want to do with the next 10 books of Hybrid Helix.
Okay,
Tower of God is not over. It's on hiatus once again. So every few years he's got to take a break. I think it's a he. I'm actually not sure. I'm sorry if I misgendered the author of Tower of God. I apologize, but they take a break every few years because just check a chapter a week. I mean that's a huge workload. Yeah, and you have to draw and write, and it's just anyway.
Jeroen has discovered that lit RPG is not for him. I think it's also not for me. I picked up the first DCC, and overall, like I really enjoyed Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy back in the day.
I want you to go back to it,
and it's very Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy kind of humor to me.
I mean, yes.
It's not very Discworld kind of humor. It's not very Discworld kind of humor, but it's very Douglas Adams kind of humor, I find. And I don't mind that. I have no problem with that. The problem I had with it was it just made me want to sit down and play a video game, and I felt like I was wasting my time reading a book about a video game when I could be playing a video game. You know, because I am an avid gamer. So a big difference between me and Derry.
Yeah. Really want you to go back to that.
I know you do, and I may do that, but I only have limited numbers of years of my life left. And I have so many books I want to read more.
I agree with Rowan, because I thought, a new field of books I can get into and read, because my brain apparently really likes Dungeon Crawler Carl, so this is great. And I actually asked Brian, because he's the lit RPG guy. I was like, hey, what else can I read? And he made a couple of suggestions, and he sort of hooked me up with a book, and I was like, okay. And I read a few, and I went, I don't think this genre is for me. I think I read The Outlier already. That is the one that works for me. And
I can imagine it. I mean, just from what I've heard, like I've talked to Brian, and I've heard Brian talk a lot about lit RPG, and I love that he loves it. Yeah. And it all sounds like I would think it was garbage. Like it would just not tick any boxes for me.
I think
but it sounds like DCC is quite different than a lot of it.
Yeah.
My totally uneducated opinion, considering I've read like half of the first DCC and no other lit RPG. But anyway, hi Jimmy Nuts. Jimmy's saying hi. He's away today. Where are you away, Jimmy? Where are you away? Joe, what's your channel link?
I think I'm everywhere as JCM Berne. The last name is Berne, like the capital of Switzerland. I'm not Swiss. It's also
made up thing. It's also on the screen.
Yeah, that's me. So at JCM Berne is like my YouTube channel, which is sporadic. I think there's some fun stuff. I wouldn't put it up there if I didn't like it, but it's a very small channel, but there's some interesting things on there. And then my website is jcmberne.com. It's all, but on Twitter, I'm at Joe Berne1. I'm still on Twitter. I don't know why. I'm on Blue Sky just as much. But I like social media because I work from home.
But too, it's a much bigger part now of an author's sort of bag of tricks, isn't it?
Well, especially if you're self-published.
Yeah.
Very so it's a mixed bag, right? Like I have not found that I make a ton of sales from Twitter, but I made a ton of connections from Twitter. Yeah. So for me, it's about interacting with people like Matt, people like Derry, like you, like other authors. So that's been a huge part for me. That's what makes this whole thing worth it, because I'm not making any money. I spend much more than I make. Yeah. But what makes writing worth it for me is those connections, those people that feel like I'm part of a community, and we and that is where social media, Twitter has been amazing. Blue Sky, like the Discord channels are incredibly valuable, and cons. And it does sell books, right? But the con, I love the cons. I can't wait for Worldcon. Worldcon's in August in Seattle, and I am super. That's the other thing I have to read books of people I know, because I don't want to I don't want to run into like people I met like a year ago who are like big name authors, and I'm like, I still haven't read any of your books, but hey man, can I buy you a beer? Which they're actually very like good with that. Like, very few of them are jerks about something like that.
You got to have a huge ego to expect that everyone that talks to you has read your books.
I mean, because you go to these things and like they're regular, Brandon Sanderson's not a regular person, right? Jim Butcher will have a bubble around him, but like Sebastian de Castell is like a pretty big name, but he's not swamped at a place like this, right? Yeah. He's not big enough that he'll sit with you and have a beer, or whatever. Yeah. So, and he doesn't care. He knows you haven't read everything, and he hasn't read your book. It's booktube on a bigger scale, because I know you're an author. I own your book, but I haven't read it yet. I own it. I bought it because I'm like, Joe's a really cool guy. This will be fun.
I met Adrian Tchaikovsky when he came to Berlin, and the first thing I said I wrote him beforehand, and I was like, dude, you're coming to my city. I just read one of your books. Would you like to have, if you've got any time around your event, would you like to have a beer? And we went out for a beer the night before his thing. And I mean, one of the first things I said to him was, I heard of you a couple of years ago, but I didn't read a book of yours until last month. And now I've read 2. And one of them was a novella. And he was super nice. He
Yeah.
he is a very down to earth kind of guy, really, really nice guy. And we had a great time, you know, and we still keep in touch. He's still on that human level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I would never think to write Brandon Sanderson and say, dude, you're coming to Berlin.
Right.
Like, would you like to?
Right. Yeah.
For all we know, he's sitting in his hotel room in Berlin going, why doesn't anyone ever want to hang out with me?
Maybe. Totally. I mean, Adrian was like, actually, you know, I get to Berlin the day before the event in the afternoon, and I have nothing to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's go out for a beer and have dinner. You know,
you have a very hard time estimating how the level that people are at and that kind of thing. Like I've had people like contact me and like, I'm sure you're really busy with like as an author, like dealing with like fans and stuff. And I'm like, what do you know? What are you talking? Like, I'm not like, you're way overestimating like my spot in the, you know, the world. Like, no, well, please talk to me. So it's just kind of funny.
That's cool.
And people don't know, you know, how would you, you know, it's totally reasonable.
Yeah.
But,
and I think your book strategy is also a bit like, I think, a sensible YouTube strategy. Like, even if you're not going for money on YouTube, if you're only like everybody, it's very hard to resist measuring what's happening. You know, you start a new project, whatever it is, and you've got to measure something. So even if it's only like views or subscriptions or actually money on YouTube, nobody, I mean, it's extremely unicorn-like to start a channel and just go through the roof. Like, it just grows over time. And sometimes, you know, you do a particular video or you write a particular book and it really takes off. But what really does it, like I still get comments and likes and subscriptions based on videos I did 2 years ago. And I'm only doing live now, so I'm not getting hardly any more subscriptions on this channel. I've got a gaming channel as well, which is growing, but it's just, it goes slowly, you know, it builds up over time.
That is the goal.
Yeah, no, Kath, I can totally understand that. For those of you, by the way, who might not have heard or missed it, Kathy very awesomely hosted a discussion of Gardens of the Moon, the first book of the Malazan Book of the Fallen, yesterday with me and Carlos from StoryTube.
Nice.
And we had a great time. It's something that I have absolutely no problem blathering on about for hours on end. So being invited to talk about Malazan is like, of course, yeah. I will always do it. And Kath is, I love this. This is one of my absolute favorite things in all of bookdom, is seeing someone decide to read Malazan, even though they might have a little trepidation and they might have heard it's difficult or intimidating or whatever, and then they just like fall head over heels in love with it. And that's Kath. Kath is nice. Like completely into it right now and racing through it. Like I don't remember when exactly she started, but she's finished. She's in Reaper's Gale now, so which is book 8, I think, if I remember correctly. So yeah, awesome watching that. Book Lounge, hello, good to see you. Yeah, Jared, would have been nice if you could have made it. We had a thing. She had originally invited a bunch of people, and some people couldn't make it. And at the last minute, Alan had to drop out because his son Atticus was a bit sick.
Aww.
Nothing apparently too dramatic. It sounds like Atticus is doing fine, but he was a bit worried, and they had to take a bit more care of Atticus than usual, so he dropped out. And we invited Jared and Carlos and Dan, I think, because I knew that all of them were varying levels, interesting levels of when did you read Malazan, how much have you read?
Right.
And Jared couldn't make it, and Dan couldn't make it, but Carlos joined us last minute, and it was still awesome. Yeah. I loved it. It was, as Rogue says, a great discussion.
Nice.
Yeah.
I had a chat with young David. I say young, he just feels like such a baby.
Young David.
On the 4 corners of the page. he came and talked to me about Hob this week because I was on his for Dungeon Crawler Carl the week before. And it was one of those conversations that just could have gone on for hours. It was such a good conversation. It was lovely hanging out with David.
I love that because loving DCC and Hob do not go together in my, like, it's not like there's nothing contradictory about it, but it's not like, oh, if you love Robin Hobb, you know what you love? Dungeon Crawler Carl.
No.
Like,
But
it's not the book you push at Hob fans, no.
Right. So it's lovely.
Start because the character work is second only to Hob. The Dungeon Crawler Carl characters are phenomenal.
You haven't read Malazan.
You can't do that, Matt. You haven't read it.
You can't do it either because you haven't read Malazan.
They're not comparing anything to Malazan. I'm
The
saying
tone is
second only. Okay, in what you've read, yeah.
Of everything I've read, this is the closest anything has come in terms of character work to
the tone is dramatically different.
Hugely. Story, pacing, it could not be more different.
And the kind of character writing is very different.
Love characters.
Well. Yeah.
Give Dungeon Crawler Carl a go because those characters are amazingly well written.
Kathy actually finished Toll the Hounds this week and started Malazan in March. So, yeah, compared to most people, she is absolutely racing through it.
Yeah.
I reread the 10 books of Malazan, and it took me like a year, and I really want to do it again in a shorter period of time, like in a more focused. But I feel like I can't do anything else then, like it has to be like a part-time job, and I can't write. Like I feel like I need to retire so I can reread Malazan because I can't do my day job and write books and like do justice to that series.
The first time I read it, I basically did nothing else. I was single, living alone, and unemployed. And I basically just read Malazan all day, every day, and read all 10 in like 3 months.
I used to be a teacher, so I could read in a really dedicated way for the summer.
Yeah.
And I was reading Malazan when they came out. That was the problem. So they, I couldn't binge them all because I think I read Gardens of the Moon like the year it was published, or at least released in the US. I don't know.
Much less daunting when it's just one at a time.
Yeah.
And you're not ever looking at it and going, oh my God, that's how many of those Jonkers books, too much.
It was so strange. Like the way you found out about books was so different. This is 25 years ago, practically.
Right.
Or around that, and you'd read the booklet that came from the Science Fiction Book Club. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, either of you, but
I do.
They give you like cheap hardcovers, and you had to it was like by subscription kind of thing. You had to you had to mail them a little letter every month if you didn't want the selections. And then Gardens of the Moon showed up, and I'm like, I'll take that one. And I think my brother told me about it, my younger brother. So I don't know.
I wasn't subscribed to that, but I was subscribed to I forget what it's called. Was it the Columbia Record Club?
Oh yeah.
And it was back when music came on those plastic discs. For those of you who are young, when I was a teenager, and that was how I got into music to start with. Yeah. And you sent a thing off to them and payment, and at the beginning, it was something like you signed up and you picked 30 albums, and they sent them to you.
Yeah, for like a penny.
Yeah, for like nothing. That was just to hook you, but then you were committed for a year or whatever, and every month you would get another 5, or I forget exactly what the details were. But like that's where I got Mike and Mechanics, Genesis, Aha, all of the albums back in the day. And I suddenly had a reasonable record collection. Yep. It was cool.
We're aging ourselves.
Everybody knows how old I am.
Me too.
Yeah, I'm not hiding.
And you're younger than me, so
not by much.
That's something, Yeah. Peltube is still on the run from Columbia House. Okay.
I wonder if it's just they haven't got to our letter in the alphabet yet to chase us. Because how many people were signed up to that? That's ridiculous.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it was huge. 20 albums for a penny, and then 8 more albums at regular club prices. Yeah,
that's right. You had to buy one a month for however long it was.
Yeah,
and it was easy. It was easier in those days because you didn't have to sign up with your credit card details. You could post a check.
Right.
So
Hello,
they couldn't go,
Aslan.
I'll have your money.
Samwise, you are a liar, but I appreciate it.
You can stay.
You can't seriously think I'm anywhere near 30. I may be a good-looking 56, but I'm not that
Don't
good
insult
looking.
the man's intelligence. Stay.
They went out of business.
They went out of business. Yeah, I wasn't thinking about it a lot when I was a teenager, but eventually I was like, how do you do that and actually stay open? Like, how does that work?
Even just on the postage.
How much are they paying for albums? They've got to be getting them for so little.
Well, they weren't paying any of the creators because it was all write-off. It was all, marketing stock. So
I guess, but still, like, just getting one customer must have cost them so much. I just can't imagine how they were actually making money.
The thing is, I did work briefly in a record shop. The markup on music was massive. Like,
yeah, true. I mean, if they're getting it at
profit.
cost and maybe even discounted because they were buying such bulk.
And
I had
the minute you sell one at full price.
I had a very funny work experience once. I used to design exclusively websites. I worked in a big agency, Germany's biggest e-commerce agency. And I was working for Plus, which is a discount supermarket.
Okay.
Which is all over. They have hundreds of stores all over Germany. It's like Lidl or Aldi or any of those, if you've heard of those. So yeah. I know that Lidl and Aldi are in other countries as well. So I was working for Plus, which is, I think, limited to Germany and Austria or something. But I had a huge, important presentation to give in their office. So we drove 2-3 hours and we're sitting down in the lobby waiting. And I'm a designer, so I'm wearing like a t-shirt and jeans, but I sit down next to a guy who's waiting for his appointment and he's wearing like a cheap suit and he's sweating his ass off and he's got a cardboard box next to him. And I'm like, I'm bored. Start a conversation. So dude, what are you here for? And he's like, I work for a jam manufacturer. And And he opens up his box, and his box has got those little cardboard dividers, and it's got like 12 jars of jam in there.
Yum.
And I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. Do you actually have to bring jam to them? What? He's like, well, we're trying to do a sales deal, so this is for them to try. Each of these jars is a different jam, and da-da-da. And I was like, oh, okay, so it looks like maybe this is a big deal for you. And he was like, well, if we sign this deal, and this is the way these stores work, if we sign this deal, they will promise to buy 1 million jars over the next 5 years or whatever it was. We will sell them at like 25% what we normally sell the jars for, but we have guaranteed 1 million sales.
Yeah.
So if this goes well, I will get promoted.
Yes.
Like if I land this deal, it's a promotion, like guaranteed. I will be getting more pay and everything. I was like, oh, okay, I understand now how that works. And they were such an awesome client to have because every now and then their marketing manager, who was the guy I was mostly talking to, he would call me or write me, and he's like, by the way, do you like Cabernet Sauvignon? I'm like, yeah. He's like,
I'm not going to say no.
We just signed a deal with this company. They make some of the best Cab Sav in Europe, but normally you'd pay 20 euros a bottle for it.
Yeah.
But ours is going to be relabeled. It won't even look like the same company anymore, but it is. Mm-hmm. They're selling us naked bottles and we're putting labels on them. Yeah. And it's going to cost $5. Nice. So in a week, go to our store and buy these. I'm like, oh my God, that's very good to know. Thank you. And he give me tips like this all the time. He's like, we're selling this. Yeah. Anyway.
Trader Joe's does that some in some places, but we don't get the Trader Joe's booze, like the liquor or the wine. Every state in the U.S. is different in what you can sell where.
Yeah.
Whether beer, wine, or liquor can be sold in different places in different states. Some of the dedicated stores versus supermarkets. It makes no sense. But I've never lived in a place where the Trader Joe's could sell booze.
No, I mean, in America, I remember, like, I lived in Virginia mostly, and Virginia is like booze is completely separate from everything. You have to go to an ABC store and buy booze at a store that sells booze, and that's all they sell, kind of thing. Capricious Fox, that is very cute of you, but I assume you're meaning the 1920s. Not that I'm in my 20s.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, cash, yeah, fuck off.
No, this is where you go, look, you're all deluded, but you're all very welcome.
It's extremely sweet.
Yeah.
Sweet but dumb.
Yeah, sweet but very far from believable.
I get it.
Ireland has Lidl and Aldi. North Ireland just got IKEA. Okay.
Big in the UK.
I thought IKEA was
We
everywhere
have them in New
already.
Zealand. We've got Woolworths and foodstuffs. And our supermarkets are allowed to do beer and wine and cider, but they're not allowed to do liquor. So, but it's very rare you'll find a supermarket in New Zealand anywhere that doesn't have a liquor shop within 2 streets.
Within sight.
So if you're going to go grocery shopping, you might want to just pop in here on your way. So,
what's the exchange rate between 20 euros and $5? I don't know right now, but let me see. 20 euros in USD is 22.80. So it's close to the same at the moment. It goes up and down, but most of the time lately it's been pretty close to 1-to-1. It used to be really cool because I was working for an American company and I was living in Europe and I got paid in dollars, which were worth a lot more than euros. So I would get paid a reasonable wage in America and I would turn it into a really fucking awesome wage in Europe because of the exchange rate. My mother, when we were living in Australia, my mother worked for the American embassy and got paid in American dollars, and the Australian dollar was garbage back then.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like in the late 70s, early 80s. So she was like getting 30% on top just by exchanging her salary. Yeah. Pretty cool. What is everyone reading? Oh, actually, K2U3 says I should tell people about Speeties. Okay, Speeties. Speet means late. And there are these little convenience stores that are called Speedies. Okay. And they are technically not legally allowed to exist. But Berlin's really weird in a lot of ways. And it's got a very sort of strong anarchist streak where people are just like, fuck this rule that isn't that actually important. So Speedies are convenience stores that are open late.
I think we're all in favor of Germans disobeying unreasonable orders.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because they got told very clearly, this is a thing you should do.
There's a historical precedent for that would have been a good idea.
Throw that in there.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Speedies.
Speedies are basically like, for an American, it's nothing. But in Germany, everything closes at certain times.
Yeah.
There are no 24-hour stores. But Speedies are like these little convenience stores that sell a little of everything. They're basically 7-Elevens, but they're all individual. Like they're not a chain of any kind. And they've become so common that everybody has a name for them.
Yeah.
And some of them are actually called the Speedy or whatever. But yeah, they're not that unique. I mean, if you've been in America, it's like, oh, you have stores that are open late. So what? But in Germany, if you go anywhere else in Germany, Hamburg has a few Speedies, but very few and only in certain areas. And if you go south, forget it. Everything's closed. And when it's closed, everything's closed. That's it. That's just the way it is. Aslan asked, he reminded us. I think actually Aslan does this every week. Reminds us that we are actually here primarily to talk about books.
Yes.
What's everyone reading?
I'm doing Empire of the Damned again.
Okay.
I was going to try and hold out till later in the year because the third book is coming out later in the year or early next. It's not far away. It's finished. I know that much. I was very excited. But I couldn't resist. So I read Empire of the Vampire last week, and now I'm doing Empire of the Damned.
I really want to have a beer with Jay Kristoff.
Oh my God, me too.
I think I might probably hate his books.
You might actually.
I haven't read any. I've got Umpire of the Vampire or Empire of the Umpire or whatever it's called. The first one.
Umpire. It's a baseball book we didn't know Jay Kristoff wrote.
Empire of the something that rhymes with vampire.
Yeah.
I've got that one. I've even got a hardcover of it.
Have you? You don't. Oh, so jealous. You don't even know if you're going to like them, and you have the pretty one. That's so cool.
It was available in Germany on Amazon, so I ended up with the hardcover of it. Because I heard all sorts of people raving about it before I had really, really good information. And the more and more I hear about it, the more and more I think
there's actually a really good rule of thumb.
I think I probably hate it.
Go to Empire of the Vampire on Goodreads and you read his review of it.
I did.
If you read that and hate it, don't even open the book.
No. I read his review of it, and that's part of the reason I would love to have a beer with him, because I'm like, this guy's fucking funny. This guy's hilarious. And I saw Mike's interview with him, and he did another interview with him recently. I saw both of those, and I was like, what a sympathetic dude.
Yeah, he's great.
He's exactly like some of my friends in Australia. We should have a beer, mate. But I think I'd probably hate his books.
You might not, because that is the vibe. The vibe that he gives off in those interviews is the vibe in the books. That vibe of his review is pretty much the flavor of the book. If you like that review and think it's hilarious, read the book. Okay. But it's very much...
Because what I've heard from a lot of people is it's very edgelordy. It's very, I'm so dark.
No. This is the thing. Those people, if they read that review, would go, this guy's full of himself. I hate him. This is why that's the litmus test. If you can read that and find it funny,
I thought it was hilarious. I was like, dude, you do the coolest review. Have you seen it, Joe?
Seriously,
it's almost all GIFs. It's almost all animated GIFs. He writes like a short bit of text, and then there's an animated GIF, sort of continuing the sentence. And to me, it sounded like he's very much making fun of himself. He's making fun of his own book. He's making fun of people who hate his book. He's making fun of fucking everything.
Yeah.
And it's just hilarious.
That level of self-awareness kind of comes through in the book without being up itself. It's a very Australian feeling vampire story, and I love it so much.
I'll give it a go. Yeah. Also is reading Shards of Earth. Yes. For anyone who doesn't know, Shards of Earth is the first book in Adrian Tchaikovsky's Final Architecture trilogy, and it is awesome, and it only gets better from Shards of Earth. Yeah. I think, for me, I'd probably put the second book at the top as far as fun and awesome, but really, really good trilogy. I loved it. Congratulations. Also, you're reading good books. Yeah. Kathy is reading the fourth DCC, so she's into it as well. Nice little break between this is also part of the reason I'm reading this.
Yeah.
For anyone who doesn't know, this is Jingo. It's hard to see, but it's
pretty covers.
These little small format hardbacks with the ribbon.
And you get the little bit of gilding, and
which only cost a few euros more than a paperback.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy. The prices of these things, they're very affordable, which is why I have all of them from the City Watch. This is the fourth City Watch book. Yeah. I'm also reading this, much like Kathy is reading DCC, as a break between Malazan things, or after a Malazan thing.
Yeah, as a refreshing
Yeah,
more uplifting way to be angry at the world.
It's a now for something completely different.
Yes.
Yeah.
But not brainless, because, you know,
No.
does more on his fair share of work on the theme work.
But much lighter and fun. Yeah. You know, just enjoyable fun. Lord of the World.
Ooh.
It's like 1984 versus the Catholic Church. Okay.
That sounds intriguing.
It's been interesting, but very Catholic. I think I've pretty much had enough of Catholicism for the rest of my life. I went to a Catholic boys' school, and that's
enough.
More than enough.
Yeah.
But about things that are critical of the Catholic Church, I can have a lot of fun with. What is everyone else reading? Vampires versus Kangaroos, bestseller.
Could be.
Right.
Kangaroos are mean.
Kara is reading Great Big Beautiful Life. Jerome is reading Doomsday Scenario, Kyle's Doomsday Scenario, and start Berserk. Okay. Interesting.
Got to give Berserk a little time because the first 3 volumes are pretty good, but it really picks up later.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like if you read the first 3 volumes, you're not going to be like, this is mind blowing. You just won't. I mean, it's good. You might like it, but you're not going to be like, but then you get like around.
Gets mind blowing later.
Yeah. It's a very interesting series. A personal favorite. I don't recommend it to everybody, but I really like it.
Okay.
Very dark.
Rereading Storm of Swords and Memories of Ice.
At the same time.
That seems like a lot, Rogue.
That hurts my brain just hearing it.
Yeah, exactly. That is sort of painful. Both.
It feels like an entry in the World's Strongest Man book version.
Seriously cool books, both of them. Memories of Ice is one of my favorite Malazans, and Storm of Swords is my favorite Song of Ice and Fire. So, yeah, enjoy. Starting The Tea Master and the Detective, which is a Holmesian space opera novella. Okay. Never heard of it. Started reading The Shadow of the Torturer. Hey, congratulations.
That's a journey.
Welcome to an intense but awesome series.
I need to read those as not a teenager because I read them as a teenager. I don't think I got them at all.
No, you didn't. I can guarantee you.
Yeah.
Because I read them as a teenager, and I know I didn't get them because I read them again 3 times since then. Yeah. And I'm like, every time I was like, I don't remember this being in there.
Right.
I didn't. Was this always there? This subtext?
All I remember is a torturer's sword that had a hollow center with a mercury weight in it. So when you you could hold it up and like for a long time, but then when you swung it, it would go to the edge and you'd have more cutting power. I thought that was great. That's a fantastic magical. It's not a magical weapon. It's a weapon idea.
It's a mechanical weapon. But
all I remember from that series.
I like that idea.
And it had a male edge and a female edge.
I don't remember that. I believe you, but I don't.
Yeah.
I'll take your word for it.
And the sword's name is not Tempest Est. How am I forgetting this?
I don't know.
Help me out, Morton. Terminus Est, which can either mean this is the dividing line, which is a pretty cool name for a sword, or it can mean this is the end, which is also a pretty cool name for this, especially an executioner's sword. Claudia is still working on Deadhouse Gates. Awesome. Very, very. We were talking about this yesterday. Like, if you haven't read Malazan, Gardens of the Moon is awesome, or I think it's awesome anyway. But Deadhouse Gates is the first point where a lot of people go, "Oh, I see what this series is doing, and I think this is really for me." Nice. I always recommend to people, like, if you don't absolutely hate Gardens of the Moon, but you're not super hooked, read Deadhouse Gates and give up after that if by then you're not really into it. But give Deadhouse Gates a go because they're very different books.
Yeah.
And Deadhouse Gates is really where it sinks the hooks in.
With my series, I say read the first 6, pay full price, and if you're not hooked by then, you can give up.
I love it.
Read the first 20.
Yes.
Once I've written them,
Yes,
But
yes.
don't
Yes.
wait until
It
then.
will
Buy
all be
them.
amazing.
Buy them
At-
as I'm
At
publishing
full
them.
price.
At full price.
That's the important part. You can't leave that out.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
For everyone out there, this officially means that Joe loves you more than me because he actually sent me his books.
yeah,
So
all
I didn't
right.
pay. I didn't pay for him. So Joe
Yeah.
don't love me.
Well, I paid for mine. So
I paid. I paid for the first one. I did pay for the first one, and then Joe sent me a couple more.
I'm going to say
So,
before we get too far, good night, Kathy, because I know that you're actually just going to bed, even though it's almost daytime. So, good night.
Good night, Kath. Sleep well.
Like, yes.
Yeah, it's like 5 a.m. where Kathy
Yeah.
is.
It's literally just beginning to lighten on my horizon with the sunrise. So it's probably 4 or 5 in the morning there.
Yeah, no, I think it's 5 minutes to 5 for her.
Yeah.
So it's early. Yeah.
But
Yeah,
she's
you
a
need
She's
you
always-
need a break after Malazan. Yeah, this is definitely for me. And I've done this before. I think every City Watch book that I've picked up, I picked it up right after finishing a Malazan book.
I think it's a great step because there is actually a lot to be said. Like the subtext and the theme work is still quite deep.
Yeah.
So you're not like just turning off your brain. It's sort of like a halfway step back to reality.
Yeah. There's definitely stuff to think about. It's not like dumb, but it is so much lighter, and I mean, it makes you laugh, which Malazan does too occasionally, but it's usually like nervous laughter because the person you're laughing about is probably going to get horribly killed by some horrible monster soon. In Malazan, whereas in Discworld, it's just a laugh, you know.
Yeah, and if they're going to get horribly killed, it will at least be funny.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm just catching up.
That's all right.
Not easy.
Very, very happily saw Bookborn has picked up live ships. She's Ship of
I
Magic.
saw her first video of the first book, and I was like, yeah.
So excited. I've already said to both her and Joanna, because they're buddy reading, I'm like, okay, both of you need to make sure that I get to talk to you when you're finished. So please pencil that in now, because that has to happen.
Bookborn gave a review of Red Rising, which matched my feelings almost exactly. But I'm reading them with a friend, so I have to read them, and I'm like, Bookborn, I think you're right. She didn't like them very much, and I'm in very similar boat.
She's amazing.
I was this close to forcing her to read Wistful Ascending.
She's amazing.
She was my Spiffbo judge. And in the semifinals, the guy was like, it's between these two books. And he had Wistful Ascending and some book whose name I can't remember. He's like, I'm having a really hard time deciding, but in the end, I think I have to go with this one. And he picked the other one. I'm like, oh. So she almost had to read it, and then she didn't.
But no, Bookborn, every single time she releases something, I spend however long the video is going.
I like her, yeah.
Yeah, just nodding at her with every point that she makes. I'm like, oh my God, she's amazing. So
her husband is the nicest guy. Zach he's a delight. I met him at a con. He's just
what
just
an
delightful.
Amazing gift to a community to have people like the two of them. I mean,
yeah.
When they
100%.
put together, I don't think what it's called now, but they have their own fund to help the authors to get things like artists and
they were helping people get narrators, like indie authors.
Didn't know that.
They're amazing
Cool.
people.
No, they raise money to give grants, because self-publishing can be expensive. I mean, I pay for it out of pocket, but not everyone can do that.
No.
And they just were giving money, like, oh, if you need a cover, we raise some money, apply, and we'll give you a check. And they do some very cool things. And super nice people.
Yeah, amazing people.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you totally different subject, just because I'm thinking about it. Have either of you watched Justified, the TV show?
I actually think I've got it on a watch list somewhere, but no, I haven't watched it.
Or people in the chat. So I know Kathy actually loves Justified, but she's gone now. Justified is basically a cop drama where the cop is a U.S. Marshal from Kentucky, and the crime is organized crime, and almost all of the criminals are like the dumbest rednecks you've ever heard of.
Okay.
That's simplifying it a lot. But Timothy Oliphant plays the marshal, and Walter Goggins plays the sort of head redneck, and he's one of the rednecks who isn't dumb, but he is totally a redneck. And they are constantly in the show. They are just constantly, every scene or two, drinking bourbon, and they're drinking from very particular glasses.
Okay.
And I like bourbon, first of all, and I like nicely made glasses as well. And I kept looking at these glasses, and they were like shot glasses, but wider and with really thick bottoms, so larger shot glasses. And I found some.
Nice.
These are actually a bit smaller still than the ones they were drinking.
Are they? I don't know what they're called, but are they Russian coffee cups?
No.
No, because that's how I've bought those in the past.
Really?
Because that's a set of coffee cups with little steel handles that came.
I don't know.
And
I've been
the little steel handle.
Oh no.
And the Zarf gets you lots of points in Scrabble because ZARF is lots of points.
This is an actual Russian coffee cup.
No, because you can get the little ones for like cappuccino-ish type.
But this is like when I was in Russia. This is what I was always getting coffee from. Yeah. And I stole this one from a Russian train. And it's a separatable, like that's it's just a glass sitting in a very,
called a Zarf.
Very ornate Zarf, apparently. I didn't know it was called a Zarf. I stole it from a Provodnitsa, which is Russian trains are really weird. Every wagon, at the end of every wagon, there is a probably 20-liter samovar, like a huge tank that is keeping water hot. And there's a little cubby, which is about 1.5 meters by 2 meters with a door and a little woman in it.
Okay.
And her job is to sell you tea bags, sugar, like little bags of sugar, little bags of instant coffee.
Okay. So she's like the little
tissues, whatever. Well, her main job is to rip you a new asshole if you do anything on the train.
Right.
If you're being too loud, if you don't take the sheets off your bed, because like I did the Trans-Siberian Railway, it's like you're sleeping multiple days on the train. The Provodnitsas are like the meanest, horrible women I've ever met in my life.
I love it.
And they're all a stereotypical short, kind of dumpy, kind of overweight, nasty Russian lady.
I love it.
And I stole that from one of them. One of the things that they'll yell at you about is not giving your glass back because you borrow those from them.
Yes.
And then when she wasn't in her little cubby at one point, I took it and almost got me and all my friends thrown off the train for it. But in the middle of fucking nowhere in Siberia. But yeah, it was an adventure. And this is a bourbon that Jared, the fantasy thinker, recommended to me. Woodford Reserve Double Oaked. It's good.
That's good stuff.
So I'm gonna fill up my little Justified glass.
It's too early here, but I will be drinking later because my team won the cup.
Woo!
Very excited.
Nice.
You mean Liverpool or a different team?
Of course, Liverpool. You womble.
There are multiple kinds of sports ball, and
only one of them has my scarf up today.
That's true. Okay, sure.
So
good, got it.
I'm very happy because it's been a while.
Congratulations, Liverpool.
I'm very jealous. I actually have a cousin who lives in Liverpool, and she and her son are going to the parade, and I can't wait for her photos. But I'm very jealous because I would be there. But I'm on the wrong side of the world.
Yeah.
Which is, painful, but never mind.
I actually thought of doing a rewatch of Justified and making it a drinking game that every time they drink, you have to drink.
But you'll die.
Yeah, no, I thought I would be unconscious by like the middle of episode 1.
Yeah.
Like I can drink a fair bit, but like they're drinking colored water, the actors, and I'm not. So yeah, that won't happen. I although I may do a rewatch. It's good. It's actually a lot of fun. If you like Bosch, does anybody watch Bosch?
No, that's on Prime. I've got it.
Titus Welliver playing a cop in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Based on books by Dennis Lehane.
It's a book series.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a book series. I think it's Dennis Lehane. I always mix him up with another crime author, neither of which I've read. But I think it's Dennis Lehane. And Titus Welliver is awesome as Bosch. He's really, really good.
I mean, he's good pretty much always. So.
I don't know if I've ever seen him in anything except Bosch.
Maybe I'm thinking of the wrong bloke.
I feel like I hear Lahane's name a lot on BookTube. Like Josh really likes Lehane, unless I'm confused.
No, Josh is very into Lehane. Yeah.
Carlos, I'm pretty sure, is a fan.
Crystal,
Carlos and Yolanda like Dennis Lehane.
Crystal Matar, who did Brightwash, she's a big fan of Lehane. Right. I'm pretty sure.
I'm just looking it up really quickly to make sure that I'm not getting it wrong. That I'm not attributing it.
Michael Connolly, someone says. I don't know if that's a response to this.
Michael Connolly, no, you're right. It's they're the two that I always get mixed up.
Oh, okay.
I'm reading the comment. I didn't know that. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's based on Michael Connolly's work.
I wonder if I read it. I read a lot of that stuff. I went to a period like a while ago, reading a lot of like those detective books. I can't remember if I read Bosch or not, but
okay.
Yeah,
I read a lot of forensic ones. I like the Patricia Cornwell novels, Body of Evidence, and those. I like forensic thrillers, apparently.
Okay.
Because it's this. Isn't it weird, some of the genres that exist? When you think, okay, there's a whole series about somebody who just gets clues off dead bodies, and you're like, and then you think, okay, well, we have all those TV shows that do it with CSI and NCI, all of the acronym shows. So clearly it's a fascination that we have as people that we're like, ooh.
Police procedurals are a popular genre.
You're reading that.
Sort of, yeah. That's true.
The City Watch of the police procedurals of this world.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
I always like it when they transpose these things into fantasy settings. Like I'm a big fan of like noir in a fantasy world, like the P.I. Garrett books by Glenn Cook. I
haven't read those, but I'd like to. I like Black Company, so I'd probably like those.
I think you probably would, but not necessarily. They're different enough that it's not a 1-to-1. But I happen to love both. But it's just like these noir like detective stories, and it's all the tropes except like the femme fatale is an elf or whatever, So and it's in a fan, So I get a kick out of those.
They can land either really, really well and they're incredibly satisfying, or they're just jarring.
They're super stupid. Yeah.
Just like, this is weird.
Yeah. Cook is good. Like Cook is not
Cook knows what he's doing.
Yeah, he really does. Yeah. He knows what he's doing.
Read a fair bit of James Patterson as a teenager.
Yeah. I read a lot of bad stuff as a teenager. No shame there.
I read a lot of Tom Clancy when I was young, but back when it was Tom Clancy.
I read a lot of John Norman Gore novels. I've read bad books.
Oh, I read when I was in high school. I read all the Gore novels.
Yeah, I think I read 20 or 25 of them.
They're so bad.
So bad.
Oh my God, they're so bad.
They're not just bad; they're offensive.
They're bad in every way that a fantasy book could be bad.
Evie!
Sorry. Evie! For those of you that are disappointed that Evie is not on screen, it's not my fault. I did invite her, but she had things to do. So,
Evie, I need to reread Black Company before I get to Lies Weeping. So that's on my list of things to do because I read it, all of them I read them mostly as they came out. And I just I don't remember half the stuff that happens. I'm not going to appreciate Lies Weeping if I read it now. Like, that's the problem. So I'm excited to have more to get to. So
British detective shows. I totally love British detective shows as well. Although most of the ones I've watched are more recent ones. Like,
I used to love A Touch of Frost, but then I love David Jason. So
I forget the name of it, but there was one not long ago. I think it was only one season though of with David Tennant.
I know the one you mean.
I forget what it's called. It was on
It was a really good one.
Netflix. Yeah, it was very, very good. I really enjoyed it, and I wish that they would just keep making more.
Coleman in it.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't remember what it was called.
We just watched him on Jessica Jones season 1. He's so good.
Isn't he amazing as a villain?
He's amazing. He's amazing as I love everything I've seen him in. I love him in everything. But I don't like that show, but I really liked him in it.
Yeah.
Overall, I found the show pretty average.
I realized my problem because I rewatched it with my wife. And I realized I don't like anyone on the show. I don't like Jessica Jones. Like, I understand why she's broken the way she is. She's been traumatized. It's very believable. Sure. But I don't like her. And you have to spend this whole season with this person that I just don't like. And I was like,
yeah, I felt pretty much the same way about it. Yes, Evie, it was Broadchurch. That's what I mean. Indeed.
I mean, David Tennant, I only learned in the last, 5 years or so, just how embedded in theatre he was before he became a doctor. And while it didn't come as a shock, it explained an awful lot. It's like, okay, this is how he can do that really amazing range of acting, because this guy is an actor.
I really liked his Doctor Who. I really did.
He was one of my favorite modern doctors.
It's one of my favorite overall.
Maybe my favorite.
Because he had that range. He was believable as an old man in this young body.
Yeah.
Because he'd been doing Shakespeare and he'd been doing Broadway he'd been doing the West End, and since he was silly young, playing old characters.
That's interesting to know. I didn't realize that, Rogue. Broadchurch was on for years. He was in the American remake. Okay. And the American remake, I think, was only one season, or maybe it was two, but it was pretty short. There wasn't much of it.
He was in a series called Des, where he played a serial killer.
Okay. And
he's spooky as a villain. Like, he's properly creepy when he plays a villain. You're like, okay, yeah, I kind of believe that.
You know what recently completely bowled me over? Totally different medium. I played The Last of Us Part 2 this week.
Okay.
Oh my God, it wrecked me. It's such an emotional game. Oh my God. So good. There was a lot of drama about it when it came out. Mostly from bigoted idiots who couldn't deal with one of the women in it being extremely muscular, couldn't deal with one of the characters in it being trans, but mostly they couldn't deal with things I won't mention because they're big spoilers for anyone who hasn't heard about the story of it. But oh my God, it is such an emotional video game and such a good story. It knocked me over. Afterwards, I just sat there staring at the screen, stunned for half an hour at least. This message is for Derry and Derry only. Pity it's on screen.
I'm excited about this because she's getting closer to the point where I can talk to her about it. I'm very excited about that.
Is that Dungeon Crawler Carl?
It's book 4 of DCC.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
Jerome or somebody. It's ridiculous how obsessed.
I'm going to read it. I'm just going to read it on a schedule decided by Joe Carroll whenever because we're reading the series and then doing videos like every month.
Are you eyeballing it or are you audioing?
Oh, I don't audio anything. I don't do audio. I
did it for the longest time. Partly,
no.
You probably don't know. I had a stroke a long time ago, and it made reading new things really hard. So I didn't even try audio for the longest time. And then I started doing it just for rereads. So books I was already familiar with, and I did that for probably over a year before I tried anything new.
Train your brain.
And by the time I'd got to that, I could listen to it and keep up and know what was happening. And the audio on Dungeon Crawler Carl
everyone says that.
It doesn't get better. It really doesn't. And Soundproof Theatre, which is the company that does Dungeon Crawler Carl, and Jeff Hayes, who narrates, who owns the company, because they're entirely independent of Amazon, they've just opened or changed the way their company operates so that they're like a gateway for independent authors to get their books narrated and produced to audio that isn't Amazon, that people can go through Soundbooth Theatre and they can provide all of those things away from Amazon. So independent authors aren't locked in to having to give Amazon.
Here's what's interesting. So I'm on a discussion with people talking about Dungeon Crawler Carl. Everyone else had done the audiobook, and our favorite characters did not line up.
Really?
They were like, oh, we love the AI. The AI is amazing. And I'm like, I just read this book. The AI was fine as a character, but it didn't impress me. But they say that there was the vocal delivery of the character that made it amazing. And I'm like, well, I sight read it. So I thought the AI was fine. And I loved other characters, right? I loved like Donut, and I even loved Carl, like really. But the AI just made zero impression on me sight reading. And I wonder, some of that I'm sure is just me.
Yeah.
But some of it I wonder is because of that different experience.
Well, because the last book came out a few months before the audio did on ebook, and I couldn't wait. I was like, no, I have to know I have it. So I mean, there was no way I was waiting. Yeah. And so I eyeballed, I think, the last 4 just to sort of get my brain ready to eyeball this last book. And for all that, it's still a very different experience, and they were still fantastic to eyeball. Like they're 5 out of 5 for me, just eyeballing. The quality and the talent in that audio just lift it into a whole other realm of amazing. And that's a testament to Jeff Hayes and the production at Soundbooth. I mean, it really is outstanding.
I just booked my narrator for 2 more books of the Hybrid. No, like this morning. I'm not kidding. Like because he's been unavailable. He had some issues in personal stuff, so he's doing narration again. So I'm now getting the next 2 books done at the end of the year.
Awesome. That's awesome.
He's really good.
Have you found that it's really broadened your sales with audio?
I only have 1 book on audio.
Okay.
So it does quite well considering it's 1 book, but it's also in a way it hurts me because people know there's this whole series and there's only 1 book, and it's been 1 book for like a couple of years. And some people are like, well, I don't really want to start. And there's a large audience for audio only.
That's what I'm thinking.
Strongly suspect that if I can get the audio caught up, I'll do quite well because my narrator is really good, and people who listen to the book generally really like it. So
awesome.
Generally, not all, but I think if they know that more are coming and feel confident, because that's part of the thing, right? To sell a long series, you've got to have people confident that they can get the next thing. If they feel like you're going to die or you're going to take 12 years off, they don't want to read the first whatever. No, I'm not speaking of anyone in particular.
Which is a new thing. Like George R. R. Martin and Patrick Rothfuss kind of invented this attitude. Yeah. Because it used to be totally normal. Like the first book comes out, you hear good things about it, you get it, you read it. The next book comes out 3 years later, you get it, you read it. Maybe you reread the first one again. Yeah. You know, that used to be normal with everything.
It's them compounded by the fact that publishers are more likely to drop a series if it doesn't do well. So people feel that because the publishers are less willing to bank on mid-listers slowly growing. None of them want to do that. And I've heard this from people high up in the industry, right? They care less about building a business that way than they did 15 years ago. So you have a lot less feeling of security that if the first book's decent, you're going to get the second book. And now it's like, I might not get the second book because they might just bail. So it's not just Rothfuss and Martin, but
they exacerbated it. Yeah. This thing that you said is also kind of hilarious. So for those of you who don't know, The Last of Us 2, the game, had a female character in it who was introduced in the second game. She was not stereotypically feminine. She was not stereotypically pretty. She was not
Hollywood pretty.
She had small breasts. She had arms thicker than my legs. She was super buff.
I love her already.
And her face was
normal,
average, normal looking. It wasn't like a pretty actress face. And people lost their shit. First, they lost their shit because they saw previews and they thought it was a trans character. It was a man playing a woman. or a man character who had become a woman. But it turned out, no, it was a woman who had relationships with men. She wasn't even gay, but she was just super buff. She was actually quite physically intimidating. And then they lost their shit about that once they realized that was actually what she was. And now there's a TV show.
Yes.
And the TV show has cast, this character's named Abby. They cast a pretty much slimmer, much less buff woman as Abby. And people are losing their shit about that.
Okay, I'm now bitching because of it. Okay.
Finding a seriously jacked woman who can act is not the easiest thing. I mean, you can do it with CGI, but I followed female bodybuilding for a long time. There's not that many women who are that muscular.
Yeah, and you can't say to a normal-looking Hollywood woman, okay, you have to look like that in 6 months.
Right.
Like you just can't do that.
The drugs you need for that are not good for anybody.
No, exactly.
Usually not legal. No,
you can do it with steroids. You couldn't do it any other way.
I mean, the way they did She-Hulk was kind of interesting. I don't know if it was good, but it was interesting. I like She-Hulk more than most people, but it had its flaws anyway.
The fourth wall stuff is just like I'm always kind of out with fourth wall stuff.
I hate fourth wall breaking. That's why I don't love Deadpool.
No.
Or Deadpool.
Although I really enjoyed the Deadpool Wolverine movie.
Yeah,
I watched that recently.
Deadpool
and
and
I really
the fourth
enjoyed
wall
that.
break is embedded in the character. I mean, that goes back to the books.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
but I didn't love the comics either for the same reason. I'm not saying they're bad, right?
Just didn't love it.
Even as in the books, She-Hulk broke the fourth wall.
And I never loved the She-Hulk comics. I didn't. I don't like comic books about a superhero character having a regular life and regular problems. Like, I don't need that. I have regular problems. If I want to hear stories about someone having trouble like paying their taxes, I don't need to like read a comic book. I can just talk to my wife. You know?
I don't want to talk about taxes.
I don't like
not
that.
in my real life, and I don't want it in my fiction.
It's so hard to find a guy. I'm like, I don't care. Like,
yes, it is so hard to find a guy, and this is not why I'm watching this show. Stop.
But if it's like an aside, and you spend most of your time fighting, like someone with like weirdly colored skin and horns or whatever, great. But if like the focus of the book is on that, it's hard to find a guy, and I'm having trouble at my job, like I don't want that.
Yeah, no.
I want give me She-Hulk smash, at least 80% smash, and then 20% and smash in the Hulk smash sense, not in the that's a terrible pun that I didn't mean to make.
That's okay. When you
let
say
me answer Rogue's question here. Please. Let me answer Rogue's question here. What did I make of the structure of part 2? I won't go into what the structure is. So this discussion, I won't get into this discussion too far because it'll just be totally confusing and boring to anyone who hasn't played the game. But the main purpose of the whole story to me, like the main theme of the whole story, was empathy. And it's not empathy of the characters. It's the player's empathy that the story was there for. It's doing something that I think a game is uniquely positioned to do, because in a game, you don't watch a character, you are a character.
Yeah.
And in this game, it makes you play 2 different characters who are antagonists to each other in a way.
Right.
And they have their own motivations, and they have their own trauma, and they have their own horrible things that they're trying to get done. And you play as both of them. And you play one, and then you play the other one against the first one you played. And the main thing it did for me was took me from hating a character to liking them more than the other character.
Okay.
Empathizing with them so much and seeing so much of what they'd been through that I ended up at the end liking them more than the original character that everybody else probably likes more, just because of empathy. And I thought the structure couldn't have been different to do that story that way. The structure was a huge part of the story. It would be, I think it would be impossible to do that story the way and have it have the impact it had, at least on me, if it was done in a different structure. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to go back to what we were saying about people losing their minds when what they think they've signed on for is different. With characters that are, just different to how they imagine. And the uproar with the new Doctor, with Ncuti Gatwa. It's all very woke. We had a trans character, and now we've got this black Doctor, and he wears skirts, and everybody's up in arms. And
He's gay.
Someone left a comment.
He's gay, he's black, and he wears skirts. Not only is he black, that would be bad enough, but...
He's marvelous. And there was a comment on a reactor or some, I can't remember where, it might have been on a Discord. I can't remember. It was a while ago, but it was after the first few episodes with the new Doctor. And I've basically said, look, Doctor Who has always been a product of its times. And you can tell a really good Doctor Who fan because they're prepared to take on the new Doctor. And I'm really sorry that you've reached the age when you're not flexible enough anymore to be able to accept the new Doctor. And I left it there, and I was like, I think I shot that person down really well. Because it was just so much this old man that's shouting, get off my lawn.
Yeah.
In the 60s,
Doctor is change.
In the 60s, a captain of a particular spaceship kissed a black woman who was the communications officer of that spaceship.
Yeah.
And everybody lost their little minds.
Yeah. I mean,
There's always something.
And now people are like, hey, when did Star Trek become woke? And you're like,
yeah.
It was always woke.
60 years
A
ago?
long time ago, dude.
From the beginning, maybe? I don't know.
It was going out of its way to
Hi,
be woke.
Kyle.
Oh,
Enjoy raking leaves, Kyle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm talking to Kyle at the moment.
Back to the book sales thing. Bancroft said his current series is possibly not getting a third book because of the poor sales.
See, and that's bad for all writers writing series.
Yeah.
And Hexologist, Daniel says Hexologist is great. And that doesn't matter often because, I mean, we've talked about it a lot before. I talked to Adrian about it when we interviewed him. Guns of the Dawn is a great book. It's a really cool book. And it's, I think, he said, his worst performing book.
Yeah, even though he's had so much fun with it. And,
yeah. He loved it. He was very into it himself. He said that that's the book he wishes performed better because he'd love to write more, but his publishers don't want him to. And I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. Yeah, a lot. I mean, everybody I know who's read it really liked it.
And they used to take a book that would sell moderately, right? And they release the second book and the third book, and they try to build an audience. And now they'd rather roll the dice on some unknown new thing, hoping it's an instant hit. And they want to roll the dice with every release. And if it's not an instant hit, they don't care. And it's such a broken model. It's distressing because I think it's bad for the climate of buying books in general. But indie authors, we don't have to pay attention to that. We can do whatever we want, no matter how stupid it is.
We can do whatever we want, no matter how little it sells.
Breaking the formula.
Yeah,
and
that's my like a guiding principle as an author. I can do whatever I want, no matter how dumb, and I will.
Yeah.
Oh, look who it is! Come here.
Is that Fissy?
Yeah, she's been fussy.
And she?
She's right now stretched across, back feet on my bookshelf, front feet on my desk, just looking at me. But she decided to come over. Here she is.
She's so
hello.
She is.
She hates being picked up. Put me down.
Speaking of Tchaikovsky, Aslan's reading Empire of Black and Gold. That's the first one of the Bug series, isn't it? The
Bug series.
You know the one.
I do. Shadows of the Apt.
That's the one.
I need to read those. I think I have.
I'd like to read those. Yeah, I haven't read those. I haven't read that much Tchaikovsky. I just became a big fan.
Hey, Britain.
Very quickly, but there's a lot I haven't read yet.
They're the books
and it was really intriguing. I was like, this is a really interesting premise. Who knew I was going to be a fan of spiders? Actually, I said that out loud. I knew I was going to be a fan.
But Shadows of the Apt for a long time was the series that got recommended to people who loved Malazan but were done with Malazan.
Okay.
The next thing you should go for is Shadows of the Apt. And then I haven't heard people say that as much lately. People still talk about Tchaikovsky though, which I find interesting. But
Well, I mean, he does write 4 or 5 books every year.
It's quite astonishing.
There's always something to talk about.
Yeah.
And he writes fantasy and science fiction equally, and he writes in the Warhammer universe for all of those nerds. And
Does he? I don't know. I didn't.
he's a
know
huge Warhammer fan.
He's so
And
good.
he jumped into that. I think, don't quote me on this, but I think he gets paid a fair bit less than he does, like
Yeah,
for
he's
his
doing
normal
that for
books. He's just doing it because he loves the Warhammer universe, and he's written, I think, 3 novels in the Warhammer universe. New one came out this year.
Also, best eyebrows on BookTube. But
Although he's trimmed them a bit.
really?
I was actually ballsy enough or socially awkward enough to say that to him the night I met him. I was like, dude, I've seen your photos. What happened to your eyebrows?
I love that man's eyebrows.
Yeah. Well, he apparently does shave them, or not shave them, but trim them occasionally.
Mine do the full curl up if I don't snip them.
His are like my old father-in-law's.
He's got the full curl thing going on.
My father-in-law, one Christmas evening when we were all pretty drunk already, I said to him, I was like, dude, Ernst Gunther was his name. Ernst Gunther. I've known you long enough. We're drunk enough that I can ask. Can I put pencils behind your eyebrows? And he laughed himself silly, and he was like, of course, I'll get the pencils.
That's wonderful.
And we did. We stuck pencils all the way behind his eyebrows so that their tips touched, and they stayed there when I took my hands away. I was like, okay, I just wanted to know if that would actually be possible, and now I know.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Oh, Kyle's here, although he's raking leaves, so he's only listening. Maybe he can't see this. Kyle is a big Justified fan. Kyle, you may recognize this.
Yep, nice.
You may recognize this. This is the most common prop in the series Justified. Although their glass, like I said, their glasses are bigger. If I got actually their glasses and filled them like they do, I'd be so smashed.
And Britain's Talking Discworld, I'm so happy that he finally read Guards. I'm thrilled. Because he was like anyone who's never read Pratchett and reads one that resonates, suddenly going, oh, I get it.
Yeah. Why did I not read this earlier?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's actually kind of totally not for the reason that everybody says Malazan is, but I always found Discworld a little bit intimidating because I was like, even years ago when I looked at it, I was like, there are 20 how many books?
Yeah.
And he's still writing. And it was just like, I can't, but I didn't realize back then that they're not necessarily like you have to read them as a series.
The reason I started my channel, I was like, it was Discworld, not Whole. And because everyone always goes, oh my God, there's so many, where do I start? All of this. And I'm like, guys, it's only daunting because they're done and because he's gone now. And there's so many. When they were coming out one at a time, they weren't daunting any more than a comic book series is daunting. And then trying to explain to people it's not a 41 book series that builds on itself.
Yeah.
Growing to one big climax. Each book has an end. They're all the same. And
it was
I'm precious about it and read them in order. Or you can go, whatever one I find at the library, I'm reading next.
You'll probably be a little bit disappointed, Derry, but I know you won't be too disappointed because it did get me into reading Discworld.
Yeah.
What got me to do it was Alan's Where to Start video.
Yeah.
Where he showed the chart and all of that, and I was like, oh my god, it all feels so like it's too much. And then he was like, no, there's series that belong together. And you could theoretically pick up any book and read any book anytime. But if you want a series, just look at this.
Yeah, you can suddenly just swipe a whole lot.
It was like, if you like this kind of stuff, read this. If you like this kind of stuff, read that. And he said something about City Watch, and I was like, I'm going to start Discworld. That's the series I should start with. I'm going to get Guards, and I'm going to.
And that's what I did. Is that after saying, look, just don't panic. Don't panic. It's not that scary.
Yeah.
Okay. Death, folk. It's very philosophical. We're going to talk about some really deep and meaningful things in these books, and we're going to laugh. We're going to have Death riding a horse called Binky, and we're going to have Death who likes curry, and funny things like that while we explore these philosophical things. The witches, we're going to talk about the power of story and how words can manipulate people. But we're going to do this with a cat belonging to one of the witches who the local wolves are scared of. We're going to have...
Like Fitz.
You know, whatever the theme that you like. If you like police procedurals, read The Watch. If you like stories that sort of riff off fairy tales, read The Witches. If you like philosophy, read Death. If you're interested in how on earth do you run a city where things are magical, read the Moist von Lipwig books. Read specific satires. The first printing press, Gutenberg and the first printing press. Read The Truth. Fabulously funny. Standalone. Doesn't even link into anything else except that the reporter that you meet in that book shows up in books later because they're a reporter. So when things of note happens, they're there.
They turn up, yeah.
You know, so that's the thing. And cats, yes, cats are nice.
You got here late, Britain, but I am reading Jingo at the moment, so I'm only a couple books ahead of you.
Death on a Motorcycle. The Unseen University, the Wizards University, had a terrible accident very early in the series, and for about a page, the librarian is human, and for the remaining 41 books, they are an orangutan who only
says ook.
And yet that ook can carry an awful lot of meaning because you're readers and you know the librarian is intelligent and you can put your own words into his ook when he
I am
responds.
Groot.
And Sir Terry is pretty good about getting the context clear and giving you enough clues that you get what the librarian's on about. I am Groot. That's a good example as well. Like Groot has a lot to say, even though he only has 3 words.
Yeah.
I had a character in one of my books who could only say his own name because he had damaged himself with his own electrical powers. And I loved writing him because I knew every line of dialogue ahead of time. But I hope
makes things a lot easier, yeah.
So, and I wanted to write, I may get to this one day, like a side book. I want to write a cozy romance where he's like getting like speech therapy and he has a developing romance with a speech therapist, like as he runs a diner in his retirement. But so the male lead in this romance can only say his own name, his superhero name. And then I want to see if I can carry a whole book with just that. But
you heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
JCM Berne is a lazy author.
Yes, yeah, Kid Lightning.
Yeah. And you start, you know,
yeah, that's the character. That's all I can say. Kid Lightning. I had a lot of fun with that. But it was an I am Groot moment, you know, it was the same.
Yeah, Hodor.
The same you got to get everything from context.
I imagine it's an exercise in any given scene to sort of make sure the context is enough for just those words to carry.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And Groot's never like the main character, like by himself in a movie.
No.
It's not just Groot, like go around doing things. I am Groot, you know.
Reacting to something.
Yeah. He's got to have people around.
Yeah.
Rogue loved Gods and will continue City Watch, but will not call Sir Terry Sir. You are Irish, Rogue, and that's forgivable.
Sir Terry is Sir. I'm sorry, but deserves the respect. The guy forged his own sword from a meteor that he had on his land.
I'm guessing that Rogue's objection is more to who gave him the Sir.
I don't care.
Who knighted him?
I'm sorry, but if the guy is prepared to forge his own sword from a meteor when he was offered a knighthood,
Vera, I'm already there.
I'm not.
Joe's being a pussy, and Derry, it's like 7 or 8 in the morning. So
we had my wife's medical school reunion last night. It was open bar, and we had a shuttle back to the hotel. So I drank quite a bit.
That's a good excuse.
And I'm at this thing, and I'm the least educated person in the room because they're all MDs, at least half of them at not half at PhDs, but a chunk do. And I was like, oh, like, what do you do? What field of medicine are you in? I'm like, actually,
I write stories about men punching spaceships, and I publish them myself.
Well, I just tell them all I work for I told them I work for ICE, and then they all get real nervous. Like, not that ICE, different different company.
Yeah.
Sure, Vera. Do you know the way to Berlin? But you can also
you
drink
could
at home.
send her the
That's
link.
fine.
We could go, hey, and she can be the beautiful face of the stream.
That's true. Vera, if you would like to join us, DM me in Discord, and I'll send you a link.
Because
that would be cool.
Person.
Yeah, I mean, it's about time someone good looking other than Derry.
Oh, my wife's advice on pathology and pharmacology, she did it 30 years ago. That's her advice. It's very different. Everything's very different.
Do it
now.
a long time ago.
Yeah.
Well, we actually were talking. We were talking to the medical students, and they're doing a huge amount of their learning comes from like online resources. They get they get these. They don't go to lectures. This school, her school, doesn't offer in-person lecture. I mean, they still have skills training and supervised dissections, but they don't have lectures. The lecture hall is literally not used. They just say sign into the video courses and you watch the videos that are made by some central. They pay the fee and you watch them. That's how you pass the test. It's very strange. And all the doctors I was with, all the class of 95, right? So really 30 years ago, this is not an exaggeration. They're all just like, what? They're amazed. So I don't know if she can.
I get it, because it's about making sure everyone's got the same knowledge and I imagine that for medicine, you kind of don't want that disputed or discussed too much. So a lecture hall doesn't have the same necessary function as you'd have if you were perhaps discussing literature or history.
It's also a little sad because you don't have those professors with personalities that you bond with or maybe fight with. You don't have those personal development experiences of having all your friends in class with you, right? You gain some things, but you lose some things. Yeah.
But with the hands-on session, you would get, some of that group dynamic.
I mean, it's only a year and a half of like classroom stuff, and then it's 2.5 years of clinical, and the clinical is still hands-on because it has to be clinical. So it's not like all of medical school is being done on YouTube, right? That's not what's happening. But
it does make it. What's the word? It standardizes that level of knowledge.
It also means that you can go to any medical school and you're getting a very similar, like first year and a half at least, education to the person going to the best medical school.
Yes.
And that's interesting and not.
Everybody is getting the same information delivered the same way.
Yeah.
Whereas you said, you get a professor with personality who perhaps isn't a fan of this subject and will just touch on it. And
this is what makes like YouTube so fascinating. One of the things so fascinating to me is like I just watched Brandon Sanderson's course on how to become a science fiction writer, right, or a fantasy writer. That they teach, he teaches this course at Brigham Young, and he puts the lectures online for free. I watched it before. He just put up his latest semester. He just released over the last few weeks, and I just watched it. I finished a book. I had time where my book's with my editor. I'm like, I'm going to rewatch this because I love what he has to say about writing. Nice. I'm like, I have access to this. It's free. It's on my computer anywhere. I don't have to go to, Utah and register as a Brigham Young student to be in this class or to audit it.
It's limited to this number of
people. You don't have to be a Mormon.
I don't have to be a Mormon. Right? I have to sign the code of conduct, which I'm never going to, survive. And that just wasn't possible when I was, young.
No.
Right? It just didn't exist.
Nope.
No, we were still doing computer classes with punch cards.
Yeah.
So
when I was a kid, my dad was a computer programmer. I mean, he was a computer programmer most of his life. But when I was a kid, I used to go to his office, and he would give me a stack of used punch cards to scribble on to keep me busy.
That's how old we are, people.
The
beautiful people are here. Hey, Vera, how are you?
Hello.
Good to see you. How you doing?
I am so sorry for the awful audio. I went to Poland and I forgot my microphone there.
Oh my God. And you call yourself a professional YouTuber.
I don't call myself that. People are ascribing that title to me. That is fake news.
Where in Poland were you? You got to tell me. My mother's Polish.
Do you speak Polish?
No. There's a long story behind that, but apparently my father, who did not speak Polish, did not want us to have a secret language. So he would not let her teach me Polish.
Oh,
so to this day, I know I can like curse you a little bit in Polish, and I know like one or two other words, and that's it.
So what you're saying is you had a really insecure father. Have you already worked that out in therapy?
I feel like if he was a product of his he was somewhat insecure, and I kind of resent him for that. I mean, he's dead. What are you going to do? I do resent him for that because I would love to be, bilingual or something. That'd be wonderful. But also, it's a different era. I think if he'd grown up when I grew up, I don't think he would have done that. But
yeah.
But she's from Krakow, and
what's really common in Germany is a lot of people in Germany have kids who speak sort of half Polish, half German, because there are lots of Polish nannies.
Oh, of course.
I've got friends in Berlin. They've got two. Well, this was years ago, but they had two gorgeous little kids, and both parents worked, so they were home with the nanny most of the day. And at dinner, they would say half in German, half in Polish. Could you pass me the bread, or could I have some more food, or whatever? The things that they said to the nanny all the time.
I do that all the time. But the thing is, because in my head, right, college and YouTube stuff and stuff like that, like academic stuff in my head is English, but everything at home is Polish. And so my poor boyfriend, who is Irish, he doesn't know any Polish, but I'm like, for the purposes of this demonstration and for keeping privacy, we're going to call him Tree, okay?
Okay.
Well, it's like a thing.
That's a very unique name if you're trying to genericize him.
Whenever I use like a generic man name, it's always Tree, and for women, it's always Felicia. And they're not very generic names, but it's always Tree and Felicia.
But that's
okay.
Good to know.
But what was I saying? Oh yeah,
for the purposes of this demonstration, Tree.
Or something, and he's like, I don't know what a talish is, and I'm like, it's a talish, and then I don't know what it is, and I'm like, or the other day I didn't remember how to say strainer in English, so I was like, I need a sheetco, and I was trying to be like, water, you do this, and then it comes out, and he's like, a strainer. I'm like, yes, sheetco, exactly.
I'll tell you what's more horrifying.
I know this feeling because having the stroke, there are words that just don't want to come, and I'll be like, the thing, the and you're mimicking the motion. Like I'll be like, the thing.
I'll tell you, Vera, something that's more horrifying that you have to look forward to is when you've been speaking your second language every day for long enough, you will in your second language remember the word, but not in your original language. Like there are things in German. Like I was on the phone with my dad years ago already. I'd been in Germany for 10 years, and I was talking to him in English, and I said a word in German. And he was like, what? And I was like, oh, yeah, that was German. And I don't, off the top of my head, know the word I'm trying to say in English. Because I speak German all day, every day now, So
and there aren't always a one-to-one translated word, is there?
No. Well, and this was actually a perfect case of that, because it was Wahrnehmung. And Wahrnehmung is a really interesting German word. It's one of my favorite German words because, Germans put together words a lot. So wahr means true, and Nehmung, or to nehmen, is to take. So it is the truth that you take out of something. The literal translation in English is perception.
Okay.
But it lacks the nuance of Wahrnehmung. The way that the word's built, at least to me. Germans don't get this. I talk to Germans about German words, the way I deconstruct them and think about them. And they're like, it just means perception. What's your problem? I'm like, no, but it's made up of wahr and nehmen. And of course that, and they're like, no, it just means perception. Shut up. So it's just me being weird, I guess.
No, I think you're onto something. I think you should read The Witcher because Sapkowski, and read it in German. Read it in German, don't read it in English.
I have to say, I just found you on Goodreads, right? And I love that you've got your star rating and that your 1 stars is Netflix's Witcher. I literally laughed out loud when I read it.
Two problems with your recommendation, Vera. First of all, I don't like reading in German, and second of all, I read The Witcher and didn't really like it very much.
Oh.
No, that's not true. That's not true. I liked the short stories. The novels to me are weak, but the short stories I actually enjoyed.
Because
I
see,
got
you
you.
don't
I
get it.
saw
The
your
point
point.
is, the point is that the plot doesn't matter. The point is that it's a meditation on the nature of storytelling. The short stories mostly are either like Polish fairy tale retellings or like general European fairy tale retellings, except for that
Sure.
one time he was like, screw it, we're doing 1001 Nights. But it doesn't matter, because the point is that in the short stories, aka book 1 and 2, the entire point of it is that he's deconstructing like the fairy tale, and then, or rather not deconstructing, he's playing around with the fairy tale, and then the novels are what Britain is saying, oh Matt, you poor summer child. Britain,
Yeah, and
don't
this is a great example of someone misunderstanding language, because that's not what that phrase means. But I know what you mean, Britain.
Yeah.
But yeah, the cycle, the 5 books, the Pentateuch, as Sapkowski wanted to call it, they are, okay, in the olden days, we had Beowulf, we had these like great epics, we had the Odyssey, the Iliad, whatever. Then we had like fairy tales, you know, the whatever, the Grimm brother fairy tales, or, you know, he pulls from so much. And then, but now we have history. And we say that we know what history is. However, history, you only remember like the big dates, the big moments. But there are so many little things that build up to those. And that's what he's talking about. And then he, in the last book, because so many people are like, why are we starting off with this like frame narrative? Once again, this is book 5. Aren't we supposed to be concluding the story? No, because the story doesn't, like the story does matter, but it's secondary to like the discussion around the story. And he puts it in your face, which readers usually don't like if they don't know that's what's going on, because he takes us to the perspective of two historians, and he says, all of this that happened, they know the ending. The history of this world is now so in the past that they see it as just another legend, just another fairy tale. And the brilliance is that it's foreshadowed that this is going to happen. Like, he's very obvious about it, but people miss it for some reason. In the short stories, which some idiots on the internet decided to say, oh, they're not accessory reading. No, it's books 1 and 2, because in them it is foreshadowed. Because what does Yennefer say? She says in A Shard of Ice, she says that she loves the elven legends, that she thinks they are so beautiful, and that she hopes that perhaps one day humans will have some legends of their own. But after all, what are human legends going to be about? After all, human existence is so sad and dreary, and it's just work, and it's so beat down, and so it's very hard to like have dreams in this existence. And it's ironic because she and Geralt like become the fairy tale, right?
Could it be, Vera? Could it be that I touched a nerve? I'm getting the feeling that maybe I touched a nerve by saying the short stories are good and the novels not so
I think
much.
all of it is good. I think some is better than the other, but I love it.
All of what you just explained was more interesting to me than the first novel, like the first whole novel that wasn't short stories.
Yeah, but again, the point that it's not interesting is kind of the argument that he's making, that history isn't this like great grandiose epic. It's these small little moments. It's history. You know what history is, Matt? You know what history is? Sorry, I see. Joe.
You're ascribing to Sapkowski literary quality, which I'm not disagreeing with you. It may have literary quality. I suspect it does, and maybe a lot. It's just not why I read books like that.
And it's also I mean, this you're kind of describing the reason I'll never read The Wheel of Time. It's so similar. Like hardcore fans of The Wheel of Time. No, I'm not saying the argument is exactly the same, but your enthusiasm is the same enthusiasm that people who are huge fans of The Wheel of Time have for that series. But when I listen to them talk about it, them talking about it is more interesting than it was trying to read it,
because they're bringing that passion.
Because there is a thing there that you get. I mean, a lot of the time reading his stuff, I'm super forgiving, especially as someone who speaks 2 languages. I'm super forgiving of translation.
Oh yeah, the translation.
You know, and I
that's where I think a lot of the
read
trouble.
anything in a second language, and I always think, I wonder if this is totally different in its original language. You know, which I'll never know because I just don't and will never speak Polish.
No, and nor I. And the nuance is often, I mean, I read Hob. The nuance is really rich in that story and necessary to the story. That if you were doing a translation and lost that nuance, how much less is the story for whoever is reading it in a translated language?
If
So
my mom, sorry.
you know, it's relevant that it's not in its own language.
Marianne.
If my mom was younger, I'd make her read The Witcher and then talk to me about it.
Yeah.
In Polish, right? But she's like 80 and she doesn't have the temperament for like that kind of fiction anymore. Like she'll read like literary fiction, but she can't read like fantasy. She used to. She's the one who got me into fantasy and sci-fi. That's the ironic part. But she doesn't do it anymore. But if I've often thought that would be the route I would take. Say,
But
Mom.
the thing is, like what you were saying about like you don't read books for that. That's exactly why I think that our corner, like high fantasy corner of BookTube that likes the Robin Hobbs, that likes the Brandon Sanderson, Jay Kristoffs, etc. It's not that one is better and one is worse. It's just that the aim of the book is different.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all I'm talking, whenever I'm talking about books, I'm never talking about what is in any way objectively better or worse.
Yeah.
I'm talking about what I enjoyed.
Yeah,
and I just
think
didn't
it's
enjoy
so hard to
Sapkowski
not
that
enjoy
much.
it. But it's kind of like, I don't know if you guys saw this meme of this person recommending White Nights by Dostoevsky, one of my favorite little novellas of all time. And then this one girl comments, I don't know if it was ironic or not, but she says, how much spice is in this book? And I'm like, well, look, is it a romance? Yes. Technically,
What are you reading this for?
and Dostoevsky's romances are both romances, and I'm not saying that one is better and one is worse. It's just that some romances go more for the erotica, and some romances go more for the. I like to read places where I was once happy. I like to recreate the present in the image of the irretrievable past. You know, it's a little bit different. You know,
A little bit.
you're going to be
How much
disappointed.
spice is in this book?
It's fantastic.
Are
Are there any chase scenes?
I whenever I hear anyone describe that as spice, I always think, are you 5?
I describe it as spice.
Can you not say the word sex?
Well, sex isn't the same as spice, though, because there can be sex and there can be sex, and this one might be 1 chili pepper spice, and this one might be 5 chili pepper spice. There is a big difference.
Yeah.
So spice is useful when talking about books that have spice.
I still want to do a Kickstarter version of my books where I get a co-author to fill in all the Fade to Black scenes, like special editions, where there's like an extra 40 pages of spice.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
Talk to Jake.
Come on.
Oh, that sounds bad.
The Rogue, I just want to say Garev Mahagut. Oh, Garev Mahagut. Yeah.
All right.
That's
I think
Irish.
that's
You'll get
Irish.
it.
Right. And Rogue apparently liked The Witcher. I love The Witcher, but only because I played the video game 3 times, which it just is awesome. I absolutely love the video game.
Because the third video game, fulfills the goal. You know, again, there are 2 kind of like, you know, spice and spice. Here, the video game takes where in the books, the point is that the prophecy doesn't matter. Like, people get fixated on, oh, the prophecy is never fulfilled. Yeah, like, that's the point. The video game does a little retcon and says, well, actually, we will fulfill the prophecy. And so a lot of people, myself included, like, really enjoy that aspect because you get the best of both worlds, in the words of Hannah Montana. You don't do that.
Yeah. Knowing the level of spice is important. And, you know, it can help.
Yeah, I guess. If that's what you care about.
Jake Kristoff does have some spice.
Yeah. No,
Spice actually too.
I'm aware of that. I mean, he himself describes himself as one of the smuttiest fantasy authors around. So
I know he's pretty good. He gets points.
I think my expectations are in the right place.
Yeah, I think so. Well, when he was on Mike's, because that's what made me read anything from him, was the way he spoke to Mike about it. And he was saying that his wife, on reading his Spice, went, no. And pretty much gave him a pile of books to read and said,
yeah, that's right.
More this.
Yeah.
And he took instruction well.
Yeah, and he said he then had his wife and a group of her friends as beta readers specifically for the smut.
Yeah.
He's like, worked. Okay, here's a context and a sex scene. Read it and let me know what you think. And they helped him with that. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, I'm with you, Daniel. Dostoevsky's magic systems they're way too vague. I wish he would explain everything a little bit more. It was much more clear.
You what, something that Terry Pratchett does, which I adore, is his magic system's never explained either. But the magic will work 9 times out of 10. How many times have you used this spell? 9. You know, of course it will work. It's 1,000,000 to 1 chance. They always work. You know.
Yeah.
I love the humor of that. Magic will work when you need it to.
And just in general, I mean, I'm sure I've said it before. I don't want to know exactly how everything in magic works. Yeah. I'm super disappointed and bored if someone explains their magic to me to a point where I'm like, oh, so it's science, basically. Yeah. Like if it's constantly reproducible.
Behind the university where broken spells and dead potions get chucked and weird magic happens there because of these broken bits of magic. And, you know, however many books later, you suddenly have talking rats.
Yeah, I mean, in my favorite Malazan, we were talking about this yesterday, there is in the 2nd chapter a 3 or 4 sentence explanation of how magic works, and it's the clearest explanation that you ever get in the whole series.
Nice.
And there's a lot of really big time, crazy, epic fireballs and lasers shit going on, but nobody ever really sits you down and says, okay, here are the rules. And it's, if you always do this, then you always get this result. And, you know, mages maintain their mysteriousness pretty much at all times, and nobody explains anything to anybody.
I love that,
including the reader.
That feels like how magic should work.
But there's two ways it happens, right? Like Cook does this a lot in Black Company, where you do not know what the rules of magic are, but there clearly are rules, and you can tell because the characters in the world do know. So you can say to a mage, oh, that guy, he can do this and this. Do you think he can do that? And the guy will say, well, probably not, but maybe if he has this accessory or this someone helping him who can do this. So there is a set of rules that is implied. Therefore, you know that there's strategizing going on. It's not like, well, there's an evil wizard. Who knows what he can accomplish? We're just got to hope that we can defeat him. No. They're strategizing. They're coming up with a plan that based on knowledge, as opposed to a world with a truly soft magic system where the characters themselves are like, oh, well,
I call that in-world hard and soft magic. Sure. Like in Lord of the Rings, it's in-world soft magic. Yes. Magic exists for Tolkien to do what he wants with it.
Yeah.
That's it.
But there are pieces of it that are hard. The One Ring in The Hobbit is very hard magic.
The One Ring is super defined what it can do. It's totally vague how it was created and what kind of magic was used to create it. Yes. It's totally vague what Gandalf can do. Pretty much anything with fire and light, but maybe more and whatever. You know, but in Malazan, there are people in the world where you feel like this guy knows how magic works. Mm-hmm. He's just not telling anyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when he does magic, it works the same way consistently each time, you know? The ring itself is fairly hard, and it's fairly hard magic.
But the most hard magic to the reader is probably something like a lit RPG, where you're actually getting numbers.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's the other extreme. And I think a lot of people don't like that, which is fine. Like, you like what you like. It's not actually the numbers thing isn't my preference either, but that's really where the other end, like, oh, you have to add these numbers up, and if they don't add up, it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, exactly. You have to open this table up and open this table up.
Yeah.
If you've got this thing from this table and two things from this table, then you can put them together and make this.
Yeah.
See, one of the things I like about a soft magic system is that as a reader, you can infer your own meaning or nuance to it. Whereas you were saying Gandalf can do fire and light and kind of thing. Because I know he's got the Ring of Hope, then for me, it's the fire of inspiration. It's the fire of creation. It can create a meaning that perhaps wasn't ever seen by the author, but makes sense for the reader. That works across all of the story. So a soft magic can be translated, because, we're talking about meaning for the reader. A soft magic system can be richer for a reader because they can bring their own meaning to it. And that's what I like about them.
The trick is how it works with the plot, right? Because if you have a story where what you want is an action story where the main characters do something clever to win the day, which to me is the heart of a good action story. Yeah. You kind of need a magic system that's hard in at least hard in the world, right? Because otherwise what they do isn't clever. They was lucky, right? The way that they win. Like if what they did, they didn't know if it was going to work or had no reason to think it would work, but they tried it and it worked, and great. That's a Deus Ex Machina, right? Which is fine. It's just not the heart of a good action story. If
AP was here, he could give us a lecture on this. And I had he definitely could, because he wrote his thesis on it. I had a long chat with him once about his thesis, which is...
Because I thought it was the gamification, wasn't it?
No, it's more positing the idea that hard magic exists because D&D.
Yeah.
Right. Hard magic in fantasy books, at least in fantasy books I ever read, didn't really exist until D&D became a mainstream thing. Yeah. And then you had D&D, which had a book with a list, and there were exact rules about you need these ingredients and you need to do this gesture, and then you can cast this spell. And if you do those things,
you get
it works every time, and it always does the same thing, right? It made magic extremely rules based.
Yeah.
And before that, I don't really know of any. Joe is screwing up his face.
Yeah, I can see Joe thinking, hang on, let me think.
Yeah.
I mean, like, okay, so in the Conan stories, right, in the Sword and Sorcery, the magic was the bad guy's purview, so you didn't really know what it could do because it wasn't what the good guy wasn't using it. Right. So I'm thinking of examples like Amber, and I think we could argue about this and probably not get anywhere, but to me, Amber was a pretty hard system. It was very open and flexible, but still the characters knew what they could accomplish based on where they went in Amber. And then to really get better answers to this, we'd really have to dig into Moorcock in a way I haven't since the 1980s. So I'd have to read a lot
most of Moorcock. I mean, I've read Elric numerous times, and I read all of the Eternal Champion like eons ago.
Yeah.
Most of Moorcock, at least in Melna Benayan magic, is sorcery, which in that world is primarily making deals with demons.
Yeah.
So it was
I feel like
there were sort of clear requirements for having magical power, but there weren't clear rules to doing things with it, is the way I kind of remember it.
There used to always be perhaps a hard system in world that as readers we weren't privy to. And the author perhaps had an idea of how their magic worked, but didn't want to codify it to the point that limited them in the future. And the softer magics was just more, it was closer to fairy tales. It was what we're more used to, that magic is just wave your hand and it happens. And as we got smarter as readers, I don't know, more scientific in our thinking as a culture of, well, why does that work? And how did he make that work? And that shouldn't work. Or we started to see more structure in the magics in stories, in the same way as fairies became less commonplace in our stories. And we got that very clear separation of fantasy and fiction that didn't used to exist. All fiction had some element of insanity to it because it was made up. But I mean, it was a process, so it's not a clear date where you can say this is when it happened. But there came a time where you had stories that were set in reality, that didn't have magic, that didn't have fairies, that didn't have just it happened, get over it. And you had fantasy where there were impossible things, and you didn't need reasons for strange things to happen. And I wonder how much of that is society just asking more questions. We are trained as children now to question. How does that
I'm
work?
sure I'm horribly simplifying AP's thesis, but at least part of it was that hard magic started to be really hard when the people like me who grew up playing D&D started writing fantasy.
Yeah.
Who were used to playing around with magic as a very rules-based thing. Also, Orza says meow. My cat is fucking yelling at me. Marianne says, big kitty. Yes, I'm picking her up to try and distract her from the fact that she thinks she should have been fed 10 minutes ago. How do we all feel about a reading sprint?
I would love a reading sprint.
Me too.
We haven't asked Vera, what are you reading?
What are you reading?
The Crossing by Cormac
Whoops.
McCarthy.
You are flipped like everyone default is. There we go.
Oh no, I hate myself unflipped. It's so weird to look at myself. But if you guys are doing a reading sprint, then I'm gonna
Take off. Drop out. Leave.
Yeah, because I so
Can't read.
I need to do a presentation for this ophthalmologist tomorrow in the morning about the epidemiology of small bowel lymphomas.
That sounds awesome.
So it's so stupid. And well, sorry, in the small chance that my lecturers are watching,
I'm pretty sure none of your lecturers watch my channel.
But that's okay.
I know I'm a YouTube star and everyone watches my channel, but
it is online and available to everybody in the world. So
that's true. That's true.
Yeah. Maybe
But you have a very exciting, useful, and important presentation to give tomorrow, and you're so dedicated to doing it that you're going to leave. Is what you're saying.
Right. Exactly. She doesn't want to be on screen reading.
Yeah.
Good luck on the presentation.
Thank you.
Cool. Enjoy.
It's good to see you.
It was
Thanks for joining.
Bye.
Just close the tab.
She figured it out.
DK Moon says it sounds shitty. Yeah. Let's do a feeding my cat sprint.
Good plan.
Let's do it until 1/4 the hour.
Nice.
Since we're almost at 1/4 the hour.
Fabulous.
Do not forget to mute yourself, both of you, and everybody enjoy your reading. Hello. Those of you who are still here, a number of people left. They hate reading, apparently.
Alrighty.
Damn them.
Fake readers.
No, people have stuff to do. That's fine. I understand. I also have stuff to do because it's late here. It's almost 11.
Well, it's daytime here now. The sun's up.
Yeah. No, the sun was up a long time ago here. And went down a fair while ago as well. So I think it's time to wrap it up from my side. I, as always, appreciate both of you joining, and Vera, wherever she is.
Absolutely.
Spontaneous guest. First time on screen in the pub, I think. Yeah, I think. And she's been in the chat on and off, but yeah, Ron, no problem. I will pay attention to when hockey games are, wherever the fuck you are, and I'll stop scheduling the pub. No, the pub goes on at the same time every Sunday, and if you can't make it, you can't make it, and that's not my problem. Did poor Fitz make it? She is greatly diminished by her moments of starvation.
Yeah, you're heartless as a cat owner.
But she
You
is
starve her on a daily basis.
Yeah, I only feed her 4 times a day, and that's unacceptable. Unacceptable. Her latest thing, like she gets lunch out of a machine.
Yep.
I have a machine which dumps dry food.
Yep.
And I give her wet food in the morning, wet food in the evening. And she's figured out at least enough that she knows that the machine, that it's not just food in a bowl, but that the machine is full of food, even when it's not giving all of it to her. Right. So pretty much all of the time, what she does now is first of all, when the thing starts making a noise, like when the machine wakes up,
yeah,
she's like, "Ugh," and just loses her shit.
Food.
Races into the kitchen, and the machine dumps out food, and she eats it all immediately, inhales it, and then she'll sit in front of it, pawing it. like
what?
There like the little chute where the food comes out. It's got kind of a flap, so what it does is it distributes a certain amount of food, which will then open the flap and fall out. But sometimes there's a little more food, so she'll like flip that flap until all of the food is out. She'll eat that, and then she'll just sit there pawing the machine, trying to figure out how to make it give her more.
I've seen cats that know that it's attached to the plug and play with the plug on the wall, so that it'll just fall out of the socket and then push it back in, and it resets the machine. My
machine is actually it's actually got Wi-Fi, so I can feed her if I'm out. I can automatically tell it to feed her, and it's got a timer which you set on a phone app. So like at 2:00 in the afternoon, it dumps a certain amount of measured amount of food, but she'll just sit there and then I yell at her, "Fitz!" and you hear her stop, and then start again.
But it gives food sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. I just Fitz is a fellow food inhaler. I think Fitz has kitten trauma. She was a breeder's cat, so she grew up in a cattery.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of guessing that the other cats beat her up when it came to food, so she couldn't get to the food as much. I don't know this for a fact or anything, but like when she first got here, she's getting more relaxed about it. But when she first got here, you could put any amount of food in front of her and she would eat all of it as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
And then puke if it was too much. But she would eat anything that was in her bowl completely, immediately.
Yeah.
And I spent a long time when I would feed her, I would stand next to her and just pet her back. Yeah. Like, it's okay. Eating is fine. No one's going to fuck with you. There is nobody else around here. I'm not going to take your food. And there's nobody else in the flat. Chill the fuck out. and she kind of got it. Like sometimes now she'll eat a bit and she'll go lay down in the kitchen or in the living room for a bit and then come back and eat a little more and whatever. But she's still
Food
acts
trauma
like
is a
she's
thing.
always hungry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, it has been a great pleasure as always. Thank you for joining me on screen. Thank you, everybody
Thank
in
you,
the
Matt.
chat for joining us. It has been a blast. I love doing the pub. I love seeing all of you here on screen or in the chat. I wish you all a lovely week
And you.
and look forward to seeing you next Sunday.
Yep. Catch you
Have
at
a
the
good
pub
week,
next time.
everybody. Yeah.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks,